Jeff Kibbey, Communication and Jesus. The basic concept of communication enhances one's ability to reflect the teachings of Jesus. I heard a story about a man that was concerned because his wife was no longer responding to him. So as his next doctor's appointment, he talked to his doctor and tried to get a few ideas on what he can do. He said, "Doctor, I believe my wife is losing her hearing. What can I do?" Well, the doctor looked really concerned and said, "Okay, I understand. I'm going to give you a small test. When you get home, stand so far apart from your wife and say something, and keep saying it as you move closer until she hears you." So when the husband got home, his wife was making dinner. So he stood about 10 feet apart, and he said, "Honey, what's for dinner?" She didn't respond. He stepped a little bit closer. "Honey, what's for dinner?" And again, she didn't respond. After about the fourth time, he starts to get concerned. How bad has my wife's hearing gotten? So he gets about 1 foot behind her and he says, "Honey, what is for dinner?" His wife stops cooking and turns around. For the 10th time, meatloaf. So like the husband and the wife struggling to communicate, so the church struggles to communicate about Jesus. I believe the more the church understands the basic concepts of communication, the more we can adequately reflect the teachings of Jesus Christ. See, when I talk about communication, I'm not talking about preaching or even witnessing to a total stranger on the street. Communication is much more than just preaching or witnessing. Communication is listening as well. It's how we look at people when we talk to them. It's how we stop and let our ears pick up what they're saying. It's also identifying our audience. Through this speech, we will grasp a few basic concepts of communication, such as the definition of communication, communication through listening, and advancements in communication. With the help of these concepts, the church can better communicate the gospel message. So what is communication? Well, in the very beginning of my current class, which is communication, we were given 2 definitions of communication. And one of those definitions has really stuck with me. That definition is a meeting of meanings. Now, that's just so profound to me, a meeting of meanings. Because in today's world, that's what we're trying to do. We're all trying to come to a meeting of each other's meanings. We're trying to understand what each other is saying. So many times we say things multiple times and in different ways to try to understand, oh, that's what you're trying to say. We are trying to form audible sounds while using bodily gestures to explain the idea. I love what St. Augustine said in his book on faith and the creed. When we speak truly, we act with our words. What other objective do we have but to introduce our very mind into the mind of our hearer? This is communication. Not only are we acting with our words, but we must know who the audience is. Communication is not just speaking or acting with bodily functions. Many times we communicate in how we listen. Listening is a vital key in effective communication. Bryant McGill, in his book, Voice of Reason, said one of the sincerest forms of respect is actually listening to what another has to say. Imagine that. You know, I always say respect is earned and not deserved. We can earn respect from others just by listening to them, by taking time and just focusing on what they're saying. How we listen to others communicates volumes. In today's society, we're bombarded by electronic communications. We get so many different messages throughout the day and at different times. We have to try and juggle all the things that we hear in a day. But what if, when we're talking to somebody else, that we know they needed us to hear them? What would happen if we pushed everything aside, turned our ear, and just listened to what they're saying? But not just our ear, but our whole body, so our whole body is tuned in to what they're saying. Kind of like tuning in an old radio. We would just listen to exactly what they need to say. See, this in turn would give us an opportunity to not only understand the speaker and see the passion or hurt behind their voice. We'd be able to see more things. But see, now that we have a basic understanding of communication, such as the listening and coming to a meeting of meanings, let's look at the Bible and see a few examples of how the Bible teaches us To be patient in speaking, while at the same time patient in listening. How did Jesus communicate? How did he communicate? Well, Jesus was patient in speaking. In Luke 5:12-13, while he was in one of the towns, a man was there who had leprosy all over him. He saw Jesus, fell face down, and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Reaching out his hand, Jesus touched him, saying, "I am willing, be made clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. See, Jesus demonstrated the power of listening with the power of speaking. He saw this man, he fell face down and he begged Jesus. He saw with his physical body, not just with his voice and the things he was saying, but with his body, how much he was pleading with Jesus to beg him. How much he was begging with Jesus to heal him. This man was tormented with a horrible disease called leprosy. But Jesus didn't turn him away. Jesus didn't say, "Back away, you're healed, now go on." Jesus put his hand on him. Before he healed him, before he spoke anything, he gave the man the physical touch. So this man has probably not felt the warmth of another person's hand in a long time. Jesus uses physical movements while he is speaking to not only heal the man, but to console him as well. See, the Bible speaks about listening as well. In James 1:19, he says, "My dear brothers and sisters, understand this. Everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger." What would happen if we slowed things down? We live in a fast-paced world, but what would happen if we slowed our communication to where everybody clearly understood each other? We can learn from James how important communication relies upon listening. Just like Jesus, he listened to the leper. He saw the leper's body movement. He understood this leper was in torment. He also understood this leper needed comfort. We must understand if we use effective communication when others are speaking to us, it'll change the world. If we will not get caught up in saying what we want to say, but get caught up in hoping that we'll come to an understanding of what each other are saying. See, because now that we have an understanding of basic concepts, we can communicate the gospel more adequately. We can also see how Jesus personified effective communication. This will help the church become better communicators. The church is good at speaking. As a pastor, I can say that. I like to speak. But I'm not so good at listening. Because good communication is not just speaking, but listening as well. So I believe that through effective communication, and that means listening, not just speaking, we as a church can help others come to a meeting of the meaning of Christ.